When playing or recording acoustic guitar, rhythm is king. It's absolutely vital to get it right because guitar and piano really are the only two chordal instruments you have in your studio, so it's vital that you have harmony in your tunes. Of course, leaving aside things like pedal steel guitar or harp, which are two other chordal instruments, really the chords and the drive, the rhythmic drive that they have to convey is really vital. How are we going to practice to get this exactly right, and what problems are we going to find along the way? Here I've got GarageBand for iOS open. I've got the drum kit set. So I've opened up the drummer with a tempo of 60. That's quite slow. Well, in fact, let's speed it up just to start with, because the faster the tempo, the easier it is to play in time, because you've got lots and lots of things to grab hold of. The slower it is, the harder it is. Now I've set my hi-hats to 2 here, which is 8th notes. If I just play you that drum beat, it becomes even easier to delineate if you set the hi-hats to 4, because you get 16ths. So let's start with that. So I'm just going to strum G chord along with this, taking care that my timing is really, really solid. Okay, so far so good, that's okay. If we just take the hi-hats down to 8th notes now, and I'm still strumming 16ths, that means I have to put stuff in between those 8th notes, so I've got to still think in 16th notes. Now when you strum a chord, I had 16 16th notes, or rather 15, after my initial stroke. So I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 16, and again. So now I'm going to think in those terms, not counting 16 fast because it doesn't work, but it's the actual rhythmic delineation that we're interested in. With that 8th note once again. So, my 16ths that I played are a bit exposed because there aren't 16ths on this drum kit. So, the next thing to practice is if you go back to 16th notes on your hi-hat, notice I've set a sort of a soft level here as well, and no fills. I want to be able to practice this with, no sort of fills to sort of put me off, is to slow the tempo down. So let's try 60. I'm going to go slower in a minute, because actually the slower it is, the more difficult it is. So if I've got 60 beats per minute now, it's still worth waiting those 2 bars before you come in. So if you are recording, have loads and loads of drums on their own at the start so that you can really get into it. You're not wasting time. In fact, you may be saving it because you get a really good rhythmic beginning rather than something you're thinking, where is beat 1 going to come? Oh, it's kind of there. Yeah, it doesn't work like that. Also, just while we're here, when you play quietly on a guitar and you're playing a quiet chord, you're going to have a bit of spacing between those notes. How do you time this? Well, actually what you want to do is you want to make sure that the end of the chord matches up with beat 1. So you're going to come in slightly early. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to practice, I'm going to play in 16ths, but the first chord I'm going to play just before the beat so that you can hear how that works. As it gets slower, you've got to be really careful not to rush. There were occasional things there when I was playing that just pushed the beat a little bit. So if you're going to be anywhere out of time, actually it's to being slightly late is better than being slightly early, especially with the fact that you can have that first chord strummed. Okay, The next thing to do is to slow the tempo down even further. Let's try 50. This gets much, much harder. Still leave those 2 bars. Yeah, right at the end it wasn't very good. But the point is that the slower you go, the harder it is. So we've got a tempo 40 now. My goodness me. Am I going to get through this? It's really, really hard. Let's have a go. So I've still thought in 16ths. You can, of course, strum stuff that is just beats, but you can keep those 16ths going. The body, the human body, the rest of me, not just my fingers, the weight that I have actually helps to keep the momentum and keep the sort of inertia of what your hands are doing. So if you sit with a guitar and you're playing, just using your wrists to control, your right wrist to control the timing, that's even more difficult. Whereas if you've got much, much easier. Now, of course, it's essential to practice in swing terms as well. So if I speed up to, I don't know, 72 or something and go to swing at the bottom, I'm going to select 16th swing heavy. So here it is without the swing. Badly played, and with the swing 16th. So I'm going to play 2 bars and then come in. Now there, the weighting of those 16ths has to change, because actually you've got, instead of the 16ths being equal, ding, 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 you've got a 2-to-1 ratio. Dun, 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 dun. So that means that the speed of that upstroke has to actually go a bit faster in order that you can get back for the downstroke. One thing you can also practice initially, and I should have said this at the beginning as well, is that you can actually practice just by doing a chord on every stroke. You get different sounds according to the down and the up. So, or you can also strum just a few strings on the upstroke. All 6 there. Just 2 or 3 there. So there we are. There is a little insight into how to just really work with those rhythmic delineations. The hardest bit of all is having the tempo 40 and with no 8th notes, no 16th notes rather. So you could set your hi-hat really simple. Why am I putting myself through this? So that time I put 30-second notes in. Now that's not as silly as it sounds, because it may provide you with extra levels of accuracy. I did that further on, but I made a little mistake at the beginning because actually I rushed that snare drum. I'll come in after one bar. Here we go. It's all a case of developing the momentum at the start, and then you get used to the tempo that you're on. And 40 is exceptionally slow and actually really hard, especially if you're also doing finger picking. If you're just doing... So it becomes harder and harder, but it is well worth the effort, because when you've got really nice acoustic guitar or piano parts on your record, it's going to sound amazing.